Hello, my name is Mark Westerfield, and I want to welcome you to DeBarco Mechanical Corporation. As your Safety Director and HAZCOM Coordinator, it is my job to ensure that our employees work in a safe and secure environment. Here at TMC, our motto is safety first, and we will never knowingly put you in a dangerous or unsafe situation. If you ever feel like you are in such a situation, tell your superintendent or let me know, and we will help you to fix the problem.
In this video, we will go over some of the important areas that you need to be aware of to maintain safe and healthy practices on the job. You will also need to read your safety manual and talk with your supervisor to apply the safety practices of your specific job tasks and work area. This video will cover the following safety topics: general safety practices, personal protective equipment, also known as PPE, first aid, respirable crystalline silica, confined spaces, lockout-tagout procedures, fall protection, globally harmonized system, and focus 4 hazards.
Your employee safety manual is the most important tool you will work with. It includes mandatory safety rules and regulations developed to prevent accidents and injuries. These rules will only help to create a safe working environment if they are followed. TMC accepts the responsibility to provide training and proper equipment. You, the employee, will be expected to accept your responsibility to know and follow these safety rules and practices.
TMC's Safety and Accident Prevention Policy. New employees will be given brief safety orientation by their supervisors or the safety director before they start work. Weekly safety meetings will be held by the foreman or supervisor, and reports are to be turned into the office. The contractor shall use signs and posters to convey regulations, warnings, and instructions, and must be observed by company personnel on the project. All project construction areas are hard hat areas and will be strictly enforced. Report all unsafe practices and conditions to the foreman or supervisor at once. A first aid kit is readily available within the job site office or from the foreman or supervisor. Report any injury immediately. Familiarize yourself with fire extinguisher locations. Use the necessary personal protection equipment for any work being performed. Fall protection measures will be utilized when working at unprotected heights. Tools and equipment must be maintained in proper and safe working condition. Watch for falling rocks. Never turn your back to an area. Always be alert. Keep clear of swinging buckets, loads, and counterweights. Never walk behind or on the blind side of equipment. Do not try to place speed above safety. Watch out for each other to keep accidents to a minimum. Housekeeping, safety, and efficiency go hand in hand. No horseplay or scuffling permitted. Offenders are subject to disciplinary action. The use of intoxicants, alcohol, or drugs on or around the job is absolutely prohibited. Anyone doing so is subject to discipline or discharge.
Hello, my name is Joe. I'm going to show you some safety tips and ways to stay safe at work. Let's go.
Report all injuries immediately to your supervisor. Treatment will be given and incident recorded. First aid kit is in job site office or ask your supervisor or foreman. You must notify your supervisor before leaving the job site because of injury or illness, whether personal or work-related. Notify your supervisor if you get outside medical treatment by the start of the next workday. Before returning to work, you will need to present a medical clearance from the attending physician. Any medication that would hamper your ability to safely perform your job tasks must not be taken on the job without written authorization from your physician. If you have a physical handicap, tell your supervisor. You will not be expected to do a job that could injure yourself or others. Never move an injured or seriously ill person unless necessary to prevent further injury. Get emergency aid to the person. If you have first aid or medical training, inform the job safety rep. You may be invited to join the first aid team. First aid facilities are provided for your safety. Qualified personnel are available to give treatment and maintain records. General safety practices. Accidents happen without warning. Lack of knowledge of these practices will not justify non-compliance. No firearms or other weapons are permitted on the job site. If you see children or sightseers, ask them to leave. When performing your job, check your work area for problems or hazards. Take necessary steps not to endanger fellow workers or nearby equipment or materials. You will not be required to do a job which might result in injury to yourself or others. Be aware of hazards you may create for others and practice good housekeeping in your work area. Do not enter trenches or excavations more than 5 feet deep unless the sidewalls have provisions to protect against cave-ins. Your supervisor will inform you what is expected of you when working in new situations for the first time, and what safety precautions need to be taken. When working around backing machinery, never assume you are seen. Look and maintain eye contact before crossing. Do not attempt to operate machines or equipment unless your supervisor has given you authorization. Stand clear of loads being hoisted or lowered by machinery. For your protection, obey all warning signs such as Keep Out and Hard Hat Area and others. See your safety manual for regulations on your specific area or specialty, including laborers, plumbers, technicians, and welders.
Let's begin with personal protective equipment, or PPE. We require approved hard hats on all projects at all times. All safety glasses must be ANSI approved. Dark glasses should not be worn for inside work. In addition, sturdy over-the-ankle work boots are required. There are times when additional PPE is required. For example, toe caps when operating a jumping jack compactor, or a full face shield while using a chop saw, or cut-resistant gloves when handling sharp objects, such as metal framing, or respiratory protection in dusty conditions. Any person wearing respiratory protection for any reason must be trained by their respective employer according to the applicable OSHA respiratory protection standard. Hearing protection is required in noisy environments, such as work around compressors or loud equipment, like nail or fastener guns. The rule of thumb is, if you can't hear someone talking when you are standing 2 feet from them, it is too noisy and you need hearing protection. Some projects may require the use of a high-visibility or reflective vest, especially where there is exposure to vehicular traffic or heavy equipment operation. You need to be aware of fire safety. A fire on a construction site can not only cause injuries, but can put you and your associates out of work. In a fire emergency, your primary responsibility is to warn other employees and get yourself safely out of the building. However, if the fire is small, you should know how to use a fire extinguisher. An easy way to remember the proper method is with PASS. Pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. Pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. When you arrive at the project, know the location of fire extinguishers and visually inspect them to ensure they are charged and ready. If there isn't one in your area, notify your supervisor. During the course of your work, if you see a damaged fire extinguisher or one that has been discharged, immediately notify your supervisor.
So you weigh about 180 pounds, right? And you're carrying what? 20 pounds of tools? That means if you fall just 1 foot, like that, that's 400 pounds of force. Fall 6 feet, like off a ladder, that's 2,400 pounds of force. Ouch! Fall 25 feet, a pretty typical roof height, we're talking 10,000 pounds of force. Don't worry, we're not going to drop you. But you're beginning to understand the danger of falling, aren't you? Good, because fall protection is our topic today. We'll cover basic rules for avoiding falls, fall protection options, and fall protection requirements. Let's get started. What do you suppose causes falls on most job sites? Tripping hazards? Very good. Awkward positions? Yep. Openings in floors? Right again. Yes. Major falls are often caused by work environment hazards and lapses in judgment, which means most can be prevented. Keep work areas tidy, safeguard floor openings, wear personal protective gear, and take time to always work safely. Oh, thank you. Another important component of preventing falls is fall protection. According to OSHA, residential contractors in Montana are required to use fall protection on job sites where someone is working more than 6 feet off the ground. The most common fall protection systems include guardrails and personal fall arrest systems, along with other protections like netting and warning lines. Guardrails must be between 39 and 45 inches high, have mesh or mid-rails, and withstand 200 pounds of force. Personal fall arrest systems must be full-body harnesses. They should be inspected prior to use. To ensure the proper fit, just slide your hand behind the waist strap and make a fist. If you can't pull it back through, the fit is correct. For more on other types of protection like netting and warning lines, check your OSHA regs. Places where fall protection is commonly required include wall openings, holes, excavations, roofs, hoist areas, anywhere someone might inadvertently fall from or through. As you can see, fall protection is important, and it's a complex subject. Here are some great resources. For more on fall protection, click the link on this screen.
Don't fall from a ladder. Don't use the wrong ladder. Before use, always inspect a ladder for cracks and loose rungs. Choose a ladder that is long enough so that you can stay off the top rungs. When climbing or descending, always use 3 points of contact. Don't overreach. Gravity will pull you down. Be sure of your balance by keeping your belt buckle between the rails. A ladder should have secure, unbroken safety feet. Use a board on soft earth or anywhere you need to securely level the feet. Always be mindful of the 4-to-1 rule. Set the ladder 1 foot out for every 4 feet up to the point of support. Rungs are 1 foot apart, so it's easy to figure the angle. After inspecting your ladder, take any ladder out of service if it has broken or missed rungs, broken or split side rails, or any other faulty or defective construction. Ladder feet must be placed on a substantial base, and the area around the top and bottom of the ladder shall be kept clear. Ladders are not made to be used in a horizontal position as platforms, runways, or scaffolds. Ladders should not be placed in passageways, doorways, driveways, or any location where they may be hit or disturbed by other activities. Other workers and other people are not going to watch out for you, so if you have to set up in a common area, protect yourself and your ladder with barricades or guards. Inattention is the main weak spot in the defense against falls. So whatever you are doing, remember 3 rules. First of all, watch what you are doing. Stay aware of what you are doing and concentrate. And the most important rule, don't let distractions ruin your day or your life.
The OSHA definition of a confined space can be found in 1926.1202 definitions. There you will find a confined space is characterized by 3 criteria. Be mindful that all 3 criteria must be in place to meet the OSHA definition. Also, keep in mind that whether or not a hazard is present inside the space is not relevant at this point. You are only trying to identify the confined spaces at your job site. The first criteria listed in OSHA's definition of a confined space is that the space is large enough and so configured that an employee can bodily enter and perform assigned work. The operative term is bodily enter. That means the employee can fit entirely inside the space. If the space is not large enough or configured to where it can be bodily entered, then it does not meet the definition of a confined space. This standard is only intended to apply to spaces large enough and configured so that the entire body of an employee can enter. The second criteria listed in OSHA's definition of a confined space is that the space has a limited or restricted means for entry or exit. Contrary to popular belief, this does not mean that the space has only one way in or out. According to the definition in 1926.1202, limited or restricted means for entry or exit means a condition that has a potential to impede an employee's movement into or out of a confined space. That definition goes on to explain that examples of a limited means of entry or exit include, but are not limited to, trip hazards, poor illumination, slippery floors, inclining surfaces, and ladders. The OSHA Confined Space Advisor also states that limited or restricted means for entry or exit exist where the occupant must crawl, climb, twist, be constrained in a narrow opening, follow a lengthy path, or otherwise exert unusual effort to enter or leave, or where the entrance may become sealed or secured against opening from inside. Tanks built on top of the ground would be considered confined spaces once they are constructed to the point where they must be entered through a portal or other small opening on the side or the top, as is this elevated water tank, which is entered vertically through a portal on top. One commonly overlooked confined space is air handlers such as this, where the worker enters through an access panel and climbs inside to perform work. Other examples of confined spaces include ductwork large enough for a worker to bodily enter through an access panel or hatch, or where the worker enters an open end and travels into the duct, as are some crawl spaces located beneath equipment, floors, walls, and above some ceilings. Sanitary sewers that are large enough to be bodily entered are confined spaces, as are many related facilities like digesters and some sewer lift stations. Also, storm sewers and drainage culverts that are large enough to be bodily entered and have a restricted means of entry or exit are considered confined spaces.
What is GHS? GHS is the globally harmonized system of classification and labeling of chemicals. On December 1, 2013, the United States Occupational Safety and Health Administration will start phasing in GHS. GHS will standardize the labels and data sheets used to communicate chemical hazards, making them easier to identify and helping reduce the likelihood of workplace injuries and fatalities.
Pictograms are standardized icons that alert workers to the various hazards of the product in a container. There are 9 different pictograms used in the GHS labeling system. The first pictogram we will discuss is an icon of a flame. Obviously, this is associated with flammable liquids, solids, and aerosols and will appear on labels for those products. This pictogram of a flame over a circle identify materials that are classified as oxidizers. While similar in appearance to the flame pictogram we just covered, Oxidizers are actually materials that cause or contribute more oxygen to the combustion process, making other materials burn much more rapidly than they normally would. So care must be taken to avoid storing these products near flammable and combustible materials. The third pictogram depicts an exploding bomb and appears on products that are explosive. It can also be found on labels for self-reactive products and for organic peroxides. The compressed gas cylinder will appear on labels of cylinders of compressed gas under pressure. Care must be taken when handling these cylinders because in the right conditions, a broken regulator or valve can cause the cylinder to become a projectile. Also, when a compressed gas leaks into an enclosed space, such as through a leaking hose or crack valve, the gas can fill up the space and cause an oxygen-deficient atmosphere. And some gases are liquefied so they can be placed inside a cylinder. Some of these gases rapidly expand and cool when released from the cylinder and can even cause frostbite injuries if the gas makes contact with any part of your body. The corrosion pictogram will appear on labels affixed to containers of corrosive chemicals and products. Obviously, getting something corrosive onto your skin could cause a chemical burn, and the same could be said if you get any into your eye. The skull and crossbone pictogram identify chemicals and products that present an acute toxicity hazard. The toxic effects of overexposure to these poisonous products could even be fatal in the right doses. The health hazard pictogram identifies toxic chemicals and products that can cause health problems over a long period of time, such as carcinogens, which can lead to cancer, mutagens, which can cause alterations in your DNA and affect your offspring, reproductive hazards, which could affect the ability of men and women to have healthy children, respiratory sensitizers, which could cause you to have an allergic reaction when exposed to that chemical at even low levels after you have had an initial overexposure. A very broad category of chemicals and products are identified by the next pictogram, which is an exclamation mark. This symbol is associated with several products and chemicals that, relatively speaking, represent lesser levels of health hazard but still require you to take precautions. For example, many chemicals and products are considered an irritant to your skin or to your eyes, while others can have a similar effect on your respiratory tract when they are inhaled. As previously mentioned, at least one, but in many cases, 2, 3, or even more of these pictograms will appear on the labels of containers of chemicals and products covered by the OSHA Hazard Communication Standard, as well as on safety data sheets. So read them and heed them, as you will need to be aware of the hazards posed by the various products you use at work.
So, you're about to do maintenance work on a piece of equipment. In order to do that, you'll have to remove some fixed guards. This is one of those scenarios, like when you risk getting caught in moving machinery, or you're cleaning in a zone surrounded by mechanical or other energy sources that could cause injury. That requires lockout, tagout, or lotto procedures. Let's discuss the step-by-step process of executing lotto procedures while safely performing your work. First, prepare. Ask yourself appropriate questions. What are you working with? Does the equipment only have electrical and pneumatic energy, or does it have several different sources? Can you use the applicable lotto procedures to figure out the type and magnitude of all the energy sources? Here at Abbott, you could be dealing with mechanical, electrical, pneumatic, chemical, gravity, stored, potential, or thermal energy. You must identify the energy sources. Missing one of those energy sources can lead to a significant injury if you fail to disconnect the equipment. Clear the area of all non-essential personnel and tools. If barriers are needed, set those up and gather your necessary equipment, like locks, lotto devices, tags, PPE, ladder, tools. Communication is always a key component of working safely. It's crucial that you notify others. Reactivation of an energy source by someone who's unaware of the activity is a common cause of lotto injuries. Safely shut down the equipment. You must de-energize the equipment, and if residual chemical content is present, remove the chemicals and thoroughly rinse the system before closing valves and placing locks tags. You also need to isolate energy sources. Turn off valves, flip circuit breakers, throw a disconnect switch, block a fan or hatch. When you're figuring out how to isolate the energy source, make sure you reference and follow the lotto work procedure or instructions for the details. Now you'll apply the appropriate lockout devices, such as locks, covers, and/or chains and identification tags, and the appropriate lotto equipment. You must attach your facility's designated lotto lock and tag to the equipment. Then make sure you place the key for that lock on your person. No matter what, never transfer your lotto key to anyone else. Why? When you're using the designated lotto lock, everyone in the facility knows that they are prohibited from attempting to restart the equipment. Applying your lock communicates your activity and purpose, plus you place a physical barrier against reactivation of the equipment. You take control of your own safety. Then it's time to release stored energy, which can also cause injury. This can be accomplished by bleeding air pressure or neutralizing residual chemicals. This step is important. Check your work. Try it out. Verify that each step so far has been done correctly. That means that after properly doing a lotto procedure, you confirm that all energy sources are isolated with a physical barrier. You verify that the equipment will not restart, and you are personally in control of the hazardous energy that ensures that equipment can't restart without your awareness. After you check your work, go on to perform your service activity. After all, you've done a whole lot of preparation to accomplish this safely. Let's go over lotto device removal and returning to service. When you're done with your service activity, clear your work area of equipment you used and replace all guarding so that it can be safely operated. Remove your locks and keys. Perform a reverse lotto procedure. A serious reminder, shortcuts can compromise your safety. Always, every single time, fully and completely employ lockout-tagout procedures to control hazardous energy and prevent an injury. Let's talk about unique circumstances you might encounter. Line breaking. This is a special type of hazardous energy control because it involves opening a pipe or vessel that could present a chemical, thermal, or pressure hazard. Take precautions, like using personal protective equipment when you need to open a hazardous pipe or vessel. And always understand and follow your site's specific line breaking process. That covers lockout-tagout from A to Z. Now you know how to protect yourself and others against hazardous energy in a safe, efficient, and effective manner.
Silica. It's one of the most common substances on Earth. It can be found in materials like sand and rock, and building products like concrete and brick. When a worker cuts, grinds, or drills materials that contain silica, dangerous crystalline silica dust is released into the air.
In the workplace, this form of silica is generated by grinding, drilling, cutting, chipping, and crushing materials that contain silica, such as concrete members. Respirable silica can also be generated by cleaning work surfaces or by the disturbance of any nature surface. It's important to understand the silica rule is designed to protect workers against hazards associated with the inhalation of respirable crystalline silica. Now, these hazards include chronic accelerated and acute silicosis, respiratory disorders, lung cancer, kidney disease, and autoimmune disorders. These health hazards are associated with overexposure to silica and are calculated over a worker's work life determined to be 45 years of overexposure during an 8-hour day in the workplace. The new permissible exposure limit, or PEL, of respirable crystalline silica will be 50 micrograms per cubic meter, and the action level will be half of that at 25 micrograms per cubic meter. Now, let's emphasize what you, the employee, can do to protect yourself and your co-workers against overexposure to respirable crystalline silica. Know and understand the task in a workplace or on a job site that could result in exposure to respirable crystalline silica. Use the control measures such as engineering controls provided by your employer and follow the work practices set forth by your employer. Do not use compressed air or dry broom sweeping to perform work tasks for housekeeping. Immediately report to your supervisor issues that cause unexpected exposure to silica dust, such as malfunctioning tools. This will allow your supervisor to take corrective action to prevent exposure. Always wear the respiratory protection provided by your employer while performing tasks requiring this protection. Always stay out of regulated area or an area designated as restricted access, unless authorized to enter with the proper protection. At construction job sites, know who the competent person is. The OSHA Respirable Crystalline Silica Rule is designed to provide a safe and healthy workplace for all employees. It absolutely takes cooperation between your employer, you, and your fellow workers to ensure the full and proper implementation of control measures and work practices that are defined in the Exposure Control Plan. We want to thank you for your attention during this program. And if under the new OSHA Respirable Crystalline Silica Rule you have any questions or you need more information, speak to the appropriate person on your management team for clarification and for answers.
So what are the Focus 4 hazards? OSHA's found 90% of construction fatalities come from just these 4 hazards we're going to discuss. It's important to remember that these deaths were preventable. Falls are the leading cause of death in construction. Just in 2015, there were 350 fatal falls to a lower level out of the 937 construction fatalities. The second of the Focus 4 is electrical, the third is struck by, and the fourth is caught in or caught between. Let's discuss fall hazards. The primary cause of fall-related fatalities result from unprotected sides, edges, and holes, improperly constructed walking and working surfaces, improper use of access equipment, failure to properly use personal fall arrest systems, slips, trips, and falls as a result of housekeeping. So let's look at some hazards you may find in your job site. Is this a fall hazard? Yes. Workers could fall while climbing on the shoring structure to set it up and remove it. We should be providing ladders and lifts. Is there a hazard here? Yes. Workers are exposed to a fall hazard greater than 6 feet while working near this floor opening. Workers need to be protected from falls greater than 6 feet. Struck by hazards are the next in the Focus 4. The primary causes of struck by fatalities include falling objects, vehicle or equipment strikes, or being struck by flying objects. Do you recognize any hazards? We need to avoid struck by hazards by not working within the swing radius of any heavy equipment. Do we recognize any hazards? Grinding or striking materials can create flying object hazards. This worker is protected by equipment guarding and a face shield, but should also have safety glasses. The third hazard in the Focus 4 is caught in and caught between hazards. The primary causes of caught in or caught between fatalities include trench or excavation collapse, rotating equipment, unguarded parts, equipment rollovers, or poor equipment maintenance. On this job site, can you recognize any hazards? We have a potential crushing hazard from the overhead boulder and no protective system in this excavation. Can you recognize a hazard in this trench? Here we have a worker in an unprotected vertical wall trench performing pipe work. and this worker is exposed to being completely engulfed by the trench should it collapse. In addition, this trench was dug next to a residential structure with no protective system in use, and the ladder is at the end of the trench, limiting access. The fourth hazard in the Focus 4 is electrical, and the primary causes of electrocution fatalities include contact with overhead power lines, contact with live circuits in the panels, poorly maintained cords and tools, and lightning strikes. If this is your job site, can you recognize any hazards? Ensure that no employee is permitted to work in proximity to any part of an electric power circuit where the worker could contact the power circuit. In 2015, there were 4,836 fatalities in workplaces across the United States, of which 937 were construction related. Falls constitute 39% of those 937 fatalities. 85% of all OSHA citations and 90% of all dollars applied as fines are related just to the Focus 4 hazards we discussed. 79% of all fatalities that occur on construction sites are related to these Focus 4 hazards. To remain injury-free starts with planning, effective training, routine on-site inspection, management oversight, incorporating lessons learned, and always reassessing and reevaluating the worksite. To get more help with the Focus 4 construction, go to OSHA.gov. Thank you.
Now that you've watched this video and have seen some of the various work hazards, and you have been made aware of the necessary safety practices to keep you safe on the job, the next step is for you to read and learn the Employee Safety Manual. Remember, TMC's motto is safety first. Again, I want to welcome you to DeBarco Mechanical Corporation.